Tango 1 at the top, we are at Pop-Up Vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're doing that. The Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tango 1 podcast. I am Tony Smith, your host, as usual. This is episode 100. 100. I am doing this one solo. I poured myself a nice stiff Manhattan. I've got myself to go with that Manhattan, some lollipop EAAs, kind of a weird combination. But man, before we got to get going on episode 100, I got to thank all people, everybody, every single person who has listened, subscribed, shared, even if it's just one time to this podcast. I appreciate it so much. This thing started as like a passion project years ago with me and Casey Wright, and not years ago, 2 years ago now almost. Casey Wright and I started this thing during COVID. It was a means for us to kind of escape. At that point, we were doing everything on Zoom, just on a camera, him and I in here almost 16 hours a day. And Fridays became our day to sit. We put up a computer with a camera on it and some microphones, and we started to just chat and have some drinks together. What that led to has been so many amazing guests over the last couple of years, and 100 episodes, people from all over the world, really. Thanks to technology, we've had so many people in the house. We've changed our studio a few times, and we have had a ridiculous amount of views. It's actually mind-blowing to me that this little project could reach so many people and get so much positive feedback. So thank you to every single person who's ever listened to this. Thank you to the people who have sponsored us since day one. Ian and Kara Murray, you guys have been with us since the very beginning of this. Murray Insurance, which is just such a staple in the Kingsville community. Garage Gym OGs, they have the best service. I'm not here to actually plug them right now. I just want to thank them so much for supporting us, and all the other people who have sponsored us along the way, some who have come and go and some who have come back. Steve Kidd, obviously HQ Nutrition. You guys have been huge in supporting me, the Garage Gym, and the Tango 1 podcast, everything that Tango 1 does and represents. Thank you so much. And 10,000 Clothing Company, they right now we are backed off. They're backed off their Canadian sales, but without you guys, man, you guys really exposed me to a lot of people, and so many others. Danny, Bobby Maximus, Jason Gussick, so many who have supported me in all these ways to get the gym off the ground and to get everything running to where it is today, which is, the Garage Gym being 3 gyms strong, a 4th on the way. Tango 1 Solutions, I'm getting booked constantly to do speaking engagements, go to businesses and talk about leadership, culture, team dynamics. And it is just absolutely what I love to do. So thank you so much to everybody. And this podcast is kind of the culmination of it all. So today, for today's episode, we wanted to make episode 100 just a little bit something different. I have only done in 100 episodes one solo episode. So this is something still relatively new to me. This one is going to be a Q&A. I put it up on Instagram, and I got like 30 questions. I narrowed it down to about 5 or 6. We'll see how it goes. Questions about all topics of life and business and things like that. So let's have some fun with it and get on with this show. So the first question I got, this one's a deep one, and it was from an anonymous, or not anonymous, somebody who wants to remain anonymous. What are your thoughts on the rise in police officers being murdered in Canada? One, I don't want to quote and say I know the stat is true that they're on the rise, but man, it sure seems so. In the last 2 weeks, we've had 3 officers murdered in the line of duty, shot South Simcoe, and then the RCMP officer just a couple days ago. For me, my thoughts on this is it's obviously horrible. Being someone who's been involved in a couple of officer involved shootings, where we have one lost somebody, and then another one where I was right there just after to drive a guy who had been stabbed to the hospital after he had defended himself and used force to take somebody's life. But my thoughts on this, obviously my sympathies, my condolences, but I think everybody knows that that's how I feel. And I think everybody listening, that's exactly how you feel as well. But the anger inside of me over this is fuming. And it's so much bigger than what I think is just these incidents, these couple of shootings, these loss of life. And I hope this loss of life doesn't go without some kind of positive that comes from this. And I think it's the apathy of our society. We right now, in Windsor and all over Canada, don't have enough ambulances. There are not enough ambulances because they are stuck at the hospital because of procedures, because the hospitals are overwhelmed. This is allowing people to be, the hospitals overwhelmed for all kinds of reasons, right? The medical system is failing us. People are going in with mental illness, the drugs, all these things. There's nothing to do with these people as we continue to cut budgets, taking away some of the places that used to house these people that are in need of help, right? And then the apathy to allow the laws in today's day and age. One of the reasons I am no longer a police officer is because I could not be there anymore. I could not stomach letting criminals commit crimes. Right now in Canada, we have formed laws where we want police officers. We want, not that we want. You think you don't want it, but because we haven't stood up, nothing is happening about it. We are allowing police officers, wanting police officers, not allowing, wanting police officers to just respond to crime after it happens. The police are different in the paramedics and than the firemen in the sense of the police are supposed to go and prevent crime, right? Firefighters aren't going around looking for fires. Sure, they're installing, the smoke detectors and things for some fire prevention, but in the most part, they're not driving around looking for, smoke billowing in the air. Paramedics aren't driving around waiting for somebody, looking for somebody to have a heart attack. They're responding to these calls for action. The police, we're supposed to stop it. And we made the laws so that it doesn't happen. It cannot happen anymore. And if I was there, and when I was there towards the end, you were not willing to do so because of the liability, because of the laws that take criminals and turn them into victims. We are allowing this to happen. And the thing is, nobody fucking cares. Nobody cares until it's their house that's broken into, until it's their sister that's assaulted, until it's their mother's house who was burglarized, until it was somebody in their immediate network or themselves who were victimized. Then you want the police to be hard on crime. We are accepting a court system that, much like the medical system, budget cuts, all these things, we don't have. They're inundated, and they're not giving out sentences. Almost every single police report that I wrote said, I encountered such and such. I encountered Bill Jones, let's say. I knew Bill Jones from many previous police encounters of a similar nature. That is the truth. We have people walking the streets free because we have a crime. We have very little crime fighting happening these days because we're more worried about liability. And we have very little in terms of punishment sentencing. So that, to me, is the anger, the apathy in our society to let things sit, to let these things just happen, right? We don't care that we see it in the news, but you don't care that the ambulances, that the paramedics are stuck at Hotel Dieu. You see it in the news, but you don't care that there's no beds to be had at our hospitals. You see it in the news that police officers are killed, but we do not care until we're the ones who are victimized. So please, I push you, I beg you to do something more. Doing a little self-awareness workout here to let it know how hard police officers have it. That's one thing. But if we can come together and push the people, elect the right people, get this fucking Trudeau guy out of there, right? As he continues to destroy small businesses, let interest rates fly. Maybe these are some of the things that we can do to take action and make a difference. So enough on that one, enough on the ranting. Let's hopefully from here on out, more positive questions in this podcast. So next question is coming from another person who wishes to remain anonymous. This is a great question. I know it's part of your livelihood to remain consistent with life routines, etc. So you've clearly mastered this. Thank you. But have you ever found yourself in a slump where you're feeling overextended? And how do you lift yourself up to have the energy, motivation to continue pushing forward when you feel like life is pulling you in a million directions. If you don't find yourself in this situation often anymore, what's your best advice to those who are stuck in this place? Man, I think this is a common problem for so many of us. And yeah, I do find myself stuck in this, or not stuck in this, but I do find myself falling into this pit quite often. Recently, when I was opening, I said all these things happened at one time in a little recent surge in my life, I guess. I had planned to buy a property up north with two of my best friends. I was in the middle of buying a building in Harrow for the next garage and location. And I was approached by Mike Patella, seeing if I wanted to take over his gym in Windsor. These things were all on my plate. The Windsor one came about, but the other two bigger projects were on my plate for months and months and months. And the deadlines were at different times. I didn't think that they would coincide or be a problem. And then boom, all these things, all those huge things happened in a matter of 3 days. Plus, at the very same time, I had landed my two biggest Tango One, let's call them gigs, and going into some major, big businesses and delivering some leadership training. So all those things happened at one time. And yes, I felt completely overextended, completely worn down, and they were wearing on me in many different ways. Plus, I'm coaching my kids. I have my family and all the other things that all of us, so many of us do, right? And just the day-to-day operations of the garage. So what do I recommend and how do I get myself out of that? Is one, you have to tighten it up. You have to start saying no to things. And that includes your children. You know, so many people, we believe that saying no to our kids is a bad thing. I want my kids to have all the things that I didn't have. You know what? I want my kids to have a lot of things too, but I also want them to have parents and family time. So yes, my kids want to do a lot of things, but no, we're not doing all of the things so that we can spend more time together, not in a busy place, not maybe at another practice or another, another different sport or another different thing that they want to do because everybody else is doing it. That's one of the things, to start to say no. Another big one for me is when I start to feel overwhelmed is to get very strict with my routine and my schedule, is making sure that the night before I am laying in my day, I'm getting up earlier than everybody else so I can get things accomplished when everybody's asleep, including my own house and the rest of the world. But really being like absolute protector of my time and absolute laser focused on tasks that I have delegated myself to do. So I will like literally schedule every single minute of my next day. Yes, I'll have some free time in that day where things will move around, but I need to, the more routine I create, the more freedom I have. Routine and discipline create freedom. Routine equals freedom. I believe that wholeheartedly. And the more strict, the more dynamic you are with those choices and how you're going to delegate your time and who is going to get your time, is the absolute king. Your time, your presence is your greatest gift to this world. So your time that you give to anybody is the greatest gift. It is, how much is that worth to you? That is the greatest gift you can give anybody. So treat it as such a precious gift. And I think we don't say no to people. We go to everything. We do everything. We get invited to this and to that, and we go in so many different directions. It is time to say no. The busier you are, the more things you're going to have to turn down so that you can take those big items and knock them off while leaving those important relationships to you. Remember, there was one whole episode about this. One of my favorite episodes, one of my favorite sayings is, who is in your kitchen? Right? We all, in my house, the way I see it, this metaphor is, anybody's allowed on my property as long as you're not a dick. So if you're a dick, you're an asshole, get off my property. You're not allowed there. Criminals, not allowed there. Another smaller group of people, much smaller group of people, are allowed actually in my house, in my living room, right? Come on over, watch some football, come by for a drink. That's another smaller amount of people. The next cut down is how many are allowed in my kitchen. And who's allowed in my kitchen kind of goes to me by, for the most part, who will be carrying my casket? Who are the people who are going to be at my bedside or out in the hallway when I'm in my last moments? Those are the people that I want in my kitchen. I want to make sure that those people are always important to me. The reason I say kitchen, the food has always been an important part of my family. My upbringing was having big family dinners, and my family and my extended family, those are the people allow it in my kitchen. My extended family being my best buddies. I have a really, really tight crew of friends, and those are the people allowed in my kitchen. Then who's allowed in your bedroom? Obviously, that's an even smaller list, right? So it's probably time to start kicking some people out of your kitchen into your living room. Probably some time to kicking some people out of your living room out into the yard. And then there's a lot of people who need to get kicked out of your yard. So I hope that answers that question. Build a routine, stay strict to it, and you will find yourself some freedom. All right. Next question. How do you cope with the evolution of your business and brand, especially when some people expect the same thing continually? And does that align with your mission? Well, this is a good one because this is something I run into constantly. So this one comes from Liz Scott. Liz is always a great listener. And Liz, I am going to hook you up with a t-shirt because you're always giving me such great questions and you always listen to every episode. I appreciate it so much. Let me take a sip. Cheers, Liz. Cheers to 100. Okay, so how do I cope with the evolution of my business, or how do I handle the evolution of my business, knowing that some people want the garage gym to ever be the same? So that is a challenge. So this is a multi-layered question. I actually had I was on a coaching call with one of my clients the other day, and he was talking to me about getting the gears from people at his work, because the more that he delegates out, the less he sees the people on the floor as he's in a leadership position. And you can't be everywhere. And now, as we have 3 gyms, soon to have 4 gyms, I cannot be everywhere. And one of the things, you will get the guilt trip questions. You will get the guilt trip like, hey, I haven't seen you around. Didn't know you still work here. That was the question that he got from him. And the way I handle this, one of the ways is I stay positive, is when people say to me like, hey, I didn't know you still own this place, or, oh, I didn't think you still worked out here. You know what? All I say is, listen, yeah, I've been around. I know I haven't seen you in a while, but it is so great to see you. I take that negative and immediately throw it back with a positive. So that's one of the ways that I stay in the right headspace, because they're right. I have not been around. They're used to having me around here more. Hire great people. I've hired so many great people to replace me on the floor so that I can build something a little bit bigger for my family. My family also being that extended employees, and the extra services we're now able to add to the Garage Gym family, with so many people actually using the Garage Gym Army that from Amherstburg, from Kingsville, that are using our Windsor location because it's more convenient for them for work a couple of days a week at no extra charge. One of the only places to do that. Okay, but that's how we kind of handle it. Then, as we have evolutionized how we work out, how we train, how we're doing the 6-week transformation, man, people do not like change. People get very, very comfortable. But my mission, the mission of the Garage Gym, is to make an impact, to create, make people better every single day. I cannot make people better every single day if I allow them to stay comfortable. So to me, how I justify it, how I explain it, is exactly that. If I allow the people that come to the Garage Gym to train in the same manner, the same intensity, in the same style forever and ever, all I'm giving them is comfort. And once people come in these doors, 90 days, a year, whatever it is for people that really get comfortable being in here, because some people come right off the couch. I need to take that away. So I'm constantly evaluating the membership, 250 people with 300 people deep that we are now. And I'm looking at that 50th percentile. How can I pull up the 50th percentile? And how can I keep progressing the people that are in that 90th percentile, the people that have really been here a while, that really get after it all the time? And that's ways that we're always trying to make things a little bit better. The 6-week transformation, it's been a sticking point with a lot of people that we did not give them macros. We did not say, hey, eat 150 grams of protein. Okay, we did not say that. We did not say eat this many, scoops of, or this many pieces of lettuce. Like we this time divvied it out in cups. Why do we divvy it out in cups? Because I firmly believe that measuring your food every single day is borderline disorder. If every single day you're spending 15 to 20 minutes to measure your food and to place it on a scale and enter it into your MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking device you have, that is a borderline disorder. And I'm not okay with that. What do I want people to do? I want people to have a very healthy relationship. So if you're somebody with food, with fitness, so if you're somebody who is out there and you have a very specific goal that you need to get on a stage and in a bikini, well, that's a little bit different. But people who come here, for the most part, are coming here because they want to feel better, look better, and perform better. And that for me is a long-term goal. So if we can now, what else are we going to do with that? We're also going to buy you back some time. So if you just spent 10 minutes a day food, measuring your food, and now I can save you a step by just having you scoop some ground beef out in a cup, and you have to have 3 cups. I saved you, maybe 8 minutes, maybe 9 minutes in a day. And if we can save 9 minutes every day, that's 45 minutes every 5 days. That adds up. And time is the non-renewable resource. Time is everything. Time goes back to that last question that I answered. If we can buy back our time by creating more time and creating a greater sustainability with lower stress, when things like we talked about in our last question come about, you are going to be able to stay dialed in because you've built a simple, effective routine. So for me, my mission is to improve people. So how do I deal with people not being happy that I'm making evolutions? It's just that, because I know the reason people are not happy is because I am making them uncomfortable. By making them uncomfortable, I am achieving my mission. Case closed. Next question up. I'm gonna get another one from Liz, and Liz is always on the Liz wishes this was called the Mrs. Smith podcast. Actually, 100 episodes of the Tango One episode, and she wants everyone to have Mrs. Smith on it. Speaking of who are some of my best guests, that's when or my best repeat guests. There's been so many of them repeat guests. Danny is one of the funnest ones. She comes on with me, and she is a great person to add when we do. One of my favorite podcasts we did was when Danny and I brought in and sat with Dell, Mike Dell, who's running for council. It was just a great podcast. She always brings that extra dynamic. There's only been a few we've done one-on-one together, but the times that we do group podcasts and Danny's involved, those are some of my funniest and favorite episodes. Obviously, level 10. Corey's been on here a ton of times. I love having that guy on. He just brings so much energy and in depth. And he is like, that guy is a sponge looking to learn at all times off all people, whether it's me, the person who just walked in off the street into the gym, or one of the guests on the podcast. Corey is there to learn and to offer, great, solid advice. Love having that guy on. Obviously, Jimmy Mack. If you guys have not listened to an episode with Jimmy Mack, this guy is one of the greatest speakers ever, and now is finally getting recognized as such. He didn't even know he had it until he went and started doing some speeches across stateside, and now he is absolutely killing it. I love to hear things like that and to know people are succeeding. Watching our guests, go and chase after their dreams has always been, one of the bigger motivators of this podcast. And of course, Mike DeFazio on here all the time. Him and I are about to have dinner together. I'm going to get him back on this podcast in a very, very short time. So, my favorite repeat customers, those are them. I love having those guys on here and look forward to having them on here again. So in the new time soon. So back to Liz's question. So she says, tell me an awesome story about your badass wife. All right. So we'll start. Where do we start? This is my wife and I've been married 10 years. We were probably together for 2 years, 3 years before that. So before she had met all my buddies, so like you guys have heard me say, I have traveled and kind of backpacked and hiked all over the place. I'm not talking like European, like vacation type backpacking. I'm talking about backpacking into the backcountry, into some of the most rugged terrain that North, South, Central America have to offer. So it's one of my passions. And my buddies and I have been doing these trips to Algonquin and Quetico and Killarney and all these places for years and years. Once my budget got a little bit bigger, as I moved up to the police force, I started doing South America with Danny, actually. But Danny's first trip with me, hilarious enough, was to Panama. And I walk into her house and she's got all her stuff laid out. And I hold up this little tiny bag, like probably half the size of a pillowcase. And I said, all your clothes need to fit in here. And it's a compression sack for people to know. So she's got her hair straightener, her blow dryer. She leaves all this stuff behind. And, we head into South America, stay in hostels, backpack through the rainforest, do all these wild things. But the most badass thing of Danny that I remember Danny, and the biggest badass impression she made was upon my friends. So the first time really Danny met and spent any significant amount of time with my friends, we were heading to Algonquin. So we head up on a canoe trip. So we head up the day before, and get to Huntsville, beautiful place. It's a sunny day, and Danny and I and a couple of my friends and start getting into drinks. We end up going all night until about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and we're leaving on this canoe trip, this rugged canoe trip where we're portaging and carrying our canoes. We don't have a guide. We are our own guides, heading out into the wilderness for 4 or 5 days. So first thing in the morning, we get up, we jump on these canoes, and we're paddling. And Danny, like on the car ride to the canoes, had to get out of the car and puke. Never once complains because she's hungover from the night before. Then gets in this canoe and we start going. And the guys are we're really like picky on who we bring with us because we've had some bad experiences bringing people out in the woods. And it pours rain. It absolutely poured rain for 4 days in a row. Danny did not give one complaint, not one complaint to anybody. Carried her own weight, was out there chopping wood with us, getting firewood. When you guys, anybody who's been out in the woods and you know that you're not near a car, you're not near any kind of services, you got no showers, you know anything. You need to keep that fire going when it's cold and it's wet. And we worked our asses off for 4 days in a row. And I remember one of my buddies saying, like, man, this girl rocks. And from that point on, she has just never stopped being a badass. And she is the first person to give me that look of like, hey, stop being a baby. is kind of the look she gives her. Or when things get riled up, or like I described, that situation I had about a month ago when we had 3, 4, 5 different huge things going on one time. She's the person who's always got that even keel. That's why I really think that when you're talking about relationships or two leaders, I always thought that on the SWAT team, we had 2 different leaders, having those people being a little bit 2 different styles of leadership and 2 different heads and 2 different styles of reaction and action. It is the great way to run something. I'm so happy that I do run this garage gym business and our family together. Speaking of Danny, she sent in this question. This is one that's a little bit touchy because we had a situation happen with a friend of mine who posted a video and it said some words. But at the end of the day, Danny wants to know what my opinion is on raising children. Are we raising our children to be to be hard asses, let's say, or motherfuckers, or are we raising our children to be sheep? And to me, what's that comment, or is the on Netflix that show Snowflakes, right? Are we, and I'm not talking about anybody else's kids right now. I am talking about my kids and what I believe, and then I am going to say what I'm seeing out there. We just had somebody apply, and I hope this guy's fucking listening. We just had somebody apply to this gym. A young person says he's in great need of mentorship and really wants to get into the fitness industry, but doesn't want to work earlier than 8 and doesn't want to work later than 5. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I think we are teaching our children, and not us maybe so much as you and your actions, and maybe social media, maybe the things we're seeing from influencers, is that like, hey, you don't have to put your nose to the grind. You don't have to work hard. Don't do anything you don't want to do. Don't do anything that sucks. That's bullshit, man. We are raising people. We're setting people up for failure. We are setting people up for failure. That's what we are raising our children to do. If we're showing them that you don't grind, that you don't have to hustle, that you don't have to lose sleep, that you don't have to do the shitty jobs. That is how you start. That is how you can build a great foundation, is working your absolute ass off. And when we started this gym, I was telling a funny story because the furnace was broken in Kingsville, and I had to go put this big old parka on that I had in the back. And the funny thing is about that parka is I remember I would work until 3:30 in the morning at the police station, drive to Kingsville, bundle up in that parka, lay on an ab mat, and open the gym for 6 a.m. Teach a class, lay back down, teach another class at 9 a.m., drive home, spend some time with my, baby boys at that time, a little bit of time with Danny, get everything going, pack my lunch, and go back to work all night long, and then do that 3 days in a row. And that's not how I would want to live my whole life. However, knowing that you have to bust your ass to get to where you want to go, and that you have to be willing to do things that, especially now, which is awesome, which is why it's so great to have people who are around like that guy I'm talking about, because it leaves room for people like me, people like my sons, people like the people that listen to this podcast for us to succeed because we're willing to put in the work. We're willing to put in the work that other people will not do. And that will elevate you. And that will get you to the point where now you can start to delegate things. Now you can start to, next week I'm heading out to the cottage for a week with my sons. That's when you can get yourself into the positions where you can take a little bit of time off, where you can delegate some work. We don't have to be exhausted and grinding. But I really think that to learn how to work and to not be given things, to not just be, hey, you don't have to work because you don't want to play sports. You don't have to have a part-time job. You don't have to clean up your dishes. You don't have to do this if you don't want to do this. No, there are things at my house you have to do. There are shitty things you have to do. And there were shitty things when I was growing up that I had to do. And I really think that helps you to be a better, more resilient person. Better, more resilient person instead of giving everything and being given everything. Walking and getting this, $1,000 cell phone when you're in grade 6. That to me, this is we're going too far, man. We are going too far with this stuff. Make things earn, make them work, make them do these great things that you did, shit things that will make you great. What would you tell? This is a question from Christy Melko. What would you tell 20-year-old Tony? So this is a good one because I was talking to somebody about this. And what would I tell 20-year-old Tony? So I really would tell where I think I lived pretty good. I think I worked pretty hard. I had a lot of fun. I got a lot of experiences. So, it's not travel more. It's not do more things. I really did tons of things. What I would tell 20-year-old Tony is in terms of real estate, not in real estate, actually, that's where I'm going to go with this. In terms of finances, money, to think bigger and to think longer term and to look outside the box. When I was in my 20s, I was greatly influenced by a lot of police officers. And if, don't take this the wrong way, guys, I was greatly influenced in the right ways for a lot of things. Work ethic, how to smell out crime, like how to do great things, how to stay alive in so many different leadership, team dynamics, culture. All that came from the police department. But I think where I got stuck in the police department was sitting in the police cars, talking money with people who were making the same amount of money as me. So if you want to live differently, then, if you want to live in a bigger house, for example, talking money and investments with the people who live in the same size house probably isn't going to get you a bigger house, right? Doing the things the same way that everybody else in your subdivision does to raise money won't necessarily get you the best house. And that, obviously you could break that down and call that lie, but you see what I'm saying is like me bench pressing with a guy who's got the same bench press as me is probably not going to get me up to the next level of bench press. Same idea. So sitting in those cruisers, learning finances and learning, the way that these guys are doing things with their money was probably not the best way for me to get involved in it and to try to raise my wealth, for lack of a better word, right? Investing into the simple low RSPs, and knowing that I had a good pension on the other end. Chickening out on taking some of that money, pulling it from my house and buying a property. The properties that I had were actually by accident. The property I had was because the market was low and I just thought like, hey, I'm going to lose a ton of money on this. And I couldn't have, so I ended up renting out my house, which is one of the best decisions I ever made. Now I should have gone in a different direction. Some cops did, not all. Some cops did take those chances. I wish I would have taken more chances and gone when everybody was turning left. I should have turned right, because when you're talking the 90% are doing one thing, the 90% are going to stay the same. Those 10%, in that 10%, they're going to change. Some for the worse, but a lot of them for the best. And in educating myself, I would have told 20-year-old Tony to actually educate himself in other ways of building wealth. And I am really, anybody who knows me knows I have zero interest in being rich or wealthy. Okay. Will I say no to it? Absolutely not. Right. But what wealth for me does, why that is something I'm concerned with is for legacy, for my children, as I just talked about, not giving them everything, but I do want to leave something to them, or actually I want to give them something while I can watch them actually enjoy it. I don't want to leave it to them when I'm dead. I want to give them some things so that they can do some things now with it. Okay. But the reason I would say that is because wealth can give you time. It doesn't give you happiness, but if you can have more time, I believe you can have more happiness. And happiness, I've said this before in the podcast, to me, happiness is not joy. Happiness is peace, and peace is presence. Right? So if I can have more time, I can have more peace. If I can have more peace, I will be more present. I will enjoy those moments with the people in my kitchen, the people in my living room, for much, much more. And that's why I would tell 20-year-old Tony is to really focus on long-term sustainable wealth in another avenue outside of your main job. Sure, I still have some very traditional investments, but also getting outside of that and finding different ways to build things a little bit faster rather than a 1% to 2% rate, right? Find some things, take some chances, and put yourself out there, get educated on them. Because when you're young, you think you have no time. 20-year-old Tony, 25-year-old Tony, he thought he had no time at all. I thought he was busy. Man, you had so much time and so much time to read, so much time to listen to things. I know like podcasts, investment, audiobooks, so much time where I could have learned so much more that would benefit me now. The things I've learned more in the last 5 years since becoming an entrepreneur about other things people were doing in the world to make money than I knew in all of my years in policing. And that is, to my own detriment. So I say, get outside of your network. Don't just rely on the person next to you doing the very same thing to figure out how you can make your life more comfortable. So that is roughly it. That's actually all it. I have a couple other things that people shot out to me. They ended up being close to the same questions. Anyways, that is it. And I really, really appreciate you guys. I appreciate your support. I appreciate everybody who's ever been on this podcast, supported this podcast. Thank you very much. Go to HQ Nutrition, order up some focus so you can also do a solo podcast. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for episode 100. Cheers and over and out.
Now's the time to do more and be more.